Have you ever noticed this? You're always there for people. You reply fast, you remember the little things, you make time for them even when you're busy. But somehow, when they have options, they choose someone else. And after a while, a thought starts living in your head. Maybe I'm never anyone's first choice. And honestly, that feeling hurts more than being alone. Because it's not rejection, it's being almost chosen, almost important, almost enough. You start seeing it everywhere. Your friends have a best friend. Your favorite person has someone they talk to more. Even when people care about you, it feels like there's always someone standing in front of you. Someone they would pick before they pick you. And the worst part? Most people won't even notice what that's doing to you. Because from the outside, you look fine. But inside, you're constantly questioning your value. You start wondering, what's wrong with me? Why am I never the person people choose first? Why am I always the backup plan? And slowly, you stop expecting people to stay. You stop expecting messages. You stop expecting effort. Because disappointment becomes familiar. The problem is, when you felt like a second option for long enough, you begin treating yourself like one too. You start accepting half effort, half love, half friendships. Because somewhere deep down, you've convinced yourself that that's all you're worth. And that's dangerous. Because people don't teach you your value. They reveal what they value. There's a difference. Just because someone didn't choose you first, doesn't automatically mean you're less important. Think about it. A person can walk past a diamond and pick up a rock. That doesn't change what the diamond is worth. It only tells you what that person was looking for. But when you're hurt, you don't see it that way. You start comparing yourself to everyone. You look at the people being chosen, the people getting attention, the people everyone seems to love, and you quietly ask yourself, what do they have that I don't? Maybe they're funnier, maybe they're smarter, maybe they're more attractive, maybe they're just better. And comparison slowly becomes a habit that steals your confidence one thought at a time. Because no matter who you are, there will always be someone who seems ahead of you. Someone louder. Someone more popular. Someone more noticed. If your self-worth depends on being chosen over everyone else, you'll never feel enough. The truth is, being someone's first choice sounds important. But you know what's even more important? Being your own first choice. Most people spend years chasing validation from others. Waiting for someone to finally pick them. Waiting for a text. Waiting for attention, waiting for proof that they matter. But the moment your happiness depends on someone else's decision, you give them control over how you feel. And that's a game you'll never win. Because people change. Feelings change. Relationships change. Today you're their priority. Tomorrow you might not be. So if your value is built on being chosen by others, it can disappear overnight. That's why some people break completely after losing one person. Not because they lost them, but because they built their entire identity around being important to them. And when that connection disappears, they don't know who they are anymore. You need something stronger than that. You need a sense of worth that exists even when nobody is texting you. Even when nobody is choosing you. Even when you're sitting alone with your own thoughts. Because your value shouldn't rise and fall based on someone's attention. The strongest people aren't the ones who are constantly chosen. They're the ones who know their worth even when they aren't. And once you understand that, something changes. You stop begging for a seat at tables where you're barely welcome. You stop forcing conversations. You stop chasing people who keep making you feel replaceable. You stop trying to prove why you deserve to stay in someone's life. Because the right people won't make you compete for basic respect. And here's something nobody talks about. Sometimes you're not anyone's first choice because you're surrounded by the wrong people. Not bad people, just the wrong people. People who only notice what benefits them. People who only reach out when they're bored. People who like your presence but don't truly appreciate your value. And if you stay around those people long enough, you'll start believing their treatment is a reflection of your worth. It's not. A flower can spend its entire life in the wrong environment and think it's the problem, when in reality, it was never planted where it could grow. That's why chasing people is exhausting. No matter how much effort you give, you can never force someone to see your value. You can be loyal, kind, supportive, genuine, and still not be their first choice. Not because you're lacking something, but because people choose based on their own priorities, experiences, and emotions. And that's something you can't control. What you can control is this. Stop abandoning yourself while trying to be chosen by everyone else. Stop shrinking your personality to fit into someone's life. Stop pretending not to care about things that matter to you. Stop lowering your standards just because you're afraid of being alone. Because the moment you start respecting yourself, you become less afraid of who leaves. And when you're less afraid of who leaves, you stop tolerating people who make you feel unwanted. Think about how much energy you've spent, how many nights you've stayed awake, how many scenarios you've created in your head, how many times you've imagined a different ending. Now imagine if even a fraction of that energy had been invested in yourself, in your goals, in your growth, in becoming the person you've always wanted to be. That's the irony of heartbreak. The same pain that can destroy you can also transform you. It can teach you boundaries. It can teach you self-respect. It can teach you that love should never require you to abandon yourself. And maybe that's the lesson this person was meant to leave behind. Not a relationship, not a forever story, but a reminder. A reminder that you deserve people who choose you without hesitation. People who don't make you question where you stand. People who don't need to lose you before they learn your value. Because real appreciation doesn't arrive after someone leaves. It exists while they're still there. And maybe that's why some goodbyes hurt so much. Not because the person was perfect. Not because the relationship was perfect. But because you imagined a future that never got the chance to exist. You weren't just grieving a person. You were grieving the plans, the possibilities, the version of life you thought you were building with them. And that's a heavy thing to carry. Because memories only show you what was beautiful. They rarely remind you why things fell apart in the first place. That's why moving on isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering the whole story, the good moments, the bad moments, the effort you gave, and the effort that wasn't returned. It's understanding that missing someone doesn't automatically mean they belong in your future. Sometimes, it just means they were important. And important people can still become part of your past. As time goes on, you'll notice something strange. The person you miss starts becoming a memory. The pain becomes a lesson. The lesson becomes wisdom, and the wisdom becomes strength. One day, you'll look back at this version of yourself, the version that's hurting, waiting, hoping, and you'll realize how much you've changed. Not because someone came back, not because everything worked out the way you wanted, but because you kept going when it would have been easier to stay stuck. And that's something nobody can take away from you. So if you're still waiting for the day they finally realize what they lost, don't make that day the center of your life. Because the truth is, some people will miss you. Some people will regret their choices. And some people will never say a word. But your future can't depend on what happens in their mind. It has to depend on what happens in yours. Keep growing. Keep healing. Keep becoming the person you were meant to be. Not to prove anything to them. Not to make them jealous. Not to make them come back. But because your life is worth more than a story that already ended. And maybe one day, they'll hear your name. They'll see your picture. They'll remember everything. And maybe, for a moment, they'll wish they had treated you differently. But by then, you won't be the person who was waiting. You'll be the person who kept moving. The person who found peace without an apology. The person who learned that their value was never determined by who stayed and who left. Because at the end of the day, the people who are meant to be in your life won't need to lose you to understand your worth. And the people who do were never your responsibility to convince. So let them miss you. Let them wonder. Let them remember. While you focus on becoming someone who no longer needs validation from the people who couldn't see your value when you were right in front of them. One day they'll miss you. But the most important day of your life will be the day you stop needing them to.